Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I am your co-host, Chris Alba. Larkin will be joining us shortly on today's broadcast. I hope you're having an amazing Tuesday today. It's such a beautiful day. The weather nice and sunny here in northern Kentucky. Going through some things and living life. And today we're going to have an interesting topic. The power of our thoughts. And as we talk throughout the show, and of course there's always talk everywhere else about this as well. We're not exclusive on this, but everything is energy. Our thoughts are energy. It's a frequency form. And from what some of the spiritual texts say, it's the fourth dimensional realm, which is, you have the 3D, which is the physical reality. Yeah, I think this would be the best way to explain it. 3D, right? Physical reality, the reality of duality. And then you have the 4D, which is maybe the dimension of possibility, because there's choice, and we don't always know what is going to come from our thoughts, our plans, our ideas, until we put them into action, and then they create results. And it's the quality of our thoughts, it's the frequency of our thoughts, it's the vibration of our thoughts that will keep us empowered or disempowered, remaining open and curious. Being open-minded helps us be open-hearted, the 5D being a heart level. Hey, Mark, welcome. Glad you could make it today. Today we're going to talk, so we're really going to talk about thoughts, and I know Larkin is really hip on this subject. And I'm looking forward to having her jump in here and adding, what she wants to with mindset coaching. Because what I've learned from my own experiences is we can only observe our thoughts from the present moment. We can go back to a time in the past and relive a memory or an experience. Or project forward from the now into a possible future. And that's really the important part of our thoughts, the quality of our thoughts, the curiosity of our thoughts, is it allowing us to expand and evolve. And, I'm one of these people that believe, I'm not one to believe that you have to be a spiritual bypasser or a high vibe person to have quality thoughts. You can make all the excuses in the world that you want for why things are in your life. You can create alibis, you can create reasons, you can create logic. And the bottom line is, if you're not living the life that you want to be living, that's your fault. And that's great, because then you have the responsibility to do something about it. If you're not caring for your health and you're not feeling good, I'm in a situation right now. I have some friends of mine that are, dealing with cancer and stuff like that. And those thoughts that, are affirmations, intentional mantras, those types of things. And, if you keep repeating to yourself over and over and over, I'm whole, healthy, I'm whole, I'm healing, each day. And I get better and better in every way, every day, those types of things, they will help reprogram our subconscious. Now, I also am kind of stuck on this as well. because I was a big believer of that 10 years ago, and, I could always, put a positive spin on something. I could, create these really nice packages of thoughts and all those different things. But it wasn't until I ended all that my life changed for me. It wasn't until I started using thoughts as tools, and really listening, and observing, and this has been a over a decade long process. When I meditate, I listen to my thoughts. I sit and watch them, like in my, like clouds in the sky, and look at them and see where I'm at, what I'm feeling, where I have fears, where I have insecurities, where I have um absolutely, Mark. I know you're healing, brother, and many blessings towards that. Um, so, but I also feel like if we're just telling ourselves a story and we're not really making significant changes in our life, the way we feel, the way we act, the way we behave, then we're not actually responding with our whole being. We're still separating ourselves. And this is the challenge with thought. Thought always separates ourselves from the collective consciousness that is the source of all things. And that's so we can observe it. We can see it. We can sense it. We wouldn't have an understanding of what up was as far as the directionality of it if we weren't aware of what down was. And that is duality, right? And so oneness is realizing that up is just as dependent on the direction as down is direction, and is dependent on direction of up, because they contrast each other. That's the oneness. That's wholeness. And so how can we use our thoughts to think fully, to think through cause and effect, to be mature enough to have conversations that allows us as human beings to express where we've been, where we are, and where we desire to grow together. Because that's how we build community. That's how we build collaboration. That's how we build relationships. That's how we build everything in life. If we're only focused on ourselves and our own thoughts and our own feelings, then we are separating ourselves from consciousness, humanity, and that is selfishness. To be altruistic is to give, where the energy is going towards something of value. It's not enabling somebody. For example, someone doesn't want to get a job, or doesn't want to grow up, whatever the judgment is, right? Because that's still a thought. And that's how powerful thoughts are. In Hermeticism, they say the mental realm is reality, because what we think about reality is what we experience. Whether we see a spider and go, what a beautiful spider, or we freak out because there's a spider, that depends on the quality of our thoughts, how we're thinking. Now that doesn't mean you run over there and you start poking at it and whatever, because how would you like it? We'll just leave it at that. If nature treated us like we treat nature, man, things would be really different. In my view. But the power of our thoughts will move us from a victim state to an empowered state, can move us from an empowered state to a disempowered state. It is the formless energy that moves faster than our material realm. So they say the law of attraction, right? What you think about is what you vibrate in. So when you're thinking about opportunities, when you're thinking about how you're going to overcome or how you're going to move through these things or how you're going to create a new reality or new habits or anything like that, the mind is a very powerful tool, and you can visualize, what it's going to feel like, when you wake up each morning, and you're going to, instead of going and getting that cup of coffee, you're going to make a ginger shot, or you're going to make a lemon juice, or you're going to, lemon water, or you're going to do something different in your daily routine. That's rewriting your neural connections, your neuroplasticity. They say, the best way to create a new habit is by changing your old ones. And how do you change those? I mean, if you brush your teeth with your left hand, do it with your right hand. Just change it up a little bit. Doesn't have to be super significant, but those little micro changes, those little micro expressions of energy will lead to different outcomes. I remember in sales, one night we were, sitting around a table of, super successful entrepreneurs or whatever, however you want to define us at that time. We thought we were good and we were cool and all that stuff. And, we did something important. But the guy challenged us. He said, you want to do something different. You want to see how much, how conscious you are. Take your watch from your wrist that you wear it and put it on the other one, and see how much your awareness goes to that watch throughout the day, because it's something new. It's in a different place. Same watch, you wore it on your left wrist, now you're wearing it on your right wrist or whatever. But just the shift will shift the energy, will shift the awareness to another directionality. And that's the power behind our thoughts, is the ability to shift our perspectives from where we were to where we want to be. Higher outcome, however you want to define it, right? And that's important. How you define it. Stop listening to the gurus, the affirmations that are pre-printed, that you didn't create. They aren't as powerful as if you sit down and you do this stuff yourself. Stop following the traditions of the past and create your own future. Now, our traditions have a lot of valuable information in them, but it is not to blindly just follow it. I think it was Carl Jung who said, thinking is hard. That's why people judge. Because thinking requires creativity. It requires us to question what we believe is true. When we question our beliefs, we will come up with greater awareness, greater perspectives, greater opportunities. Because what we have realized is what we thought was true was just the facade, was a story that worked at one time but no longer works for us anymore. And that's okay. This is a natural process of life. The whole purpose of this show, the whole reason that I do what I do, is to help people shift their energies from where they've been to where they want to be, so they can then be who they want to become. And that's a journey. And there's a lot of paths, and there's a lot of ways, and there's a lot of perspectives. But it comes down to very simple, universal, natural laws that we can observe in nature. We can read them in books. We can gain the mental knowledge, and then we can observe them. And then when we pay attention to the quality of our thoughts and get curious about why is it that we think this way? Why do we think that somebody really hurt us? Why do we think someone took advantage of us? Why did I give my power away to someone that didn't really seem to appreciate it now that I know what I know? Would you change that? No, I wouldn't. Because I needed to know what I needed to know. And what does that really tell me? That's who I am. You know, for the longest time, I was hurt by the energy, the love, the money, the resources, the time, the whatever it was that I was trying to give to another, that when they didn't appreciate it in the way that I thought they needed to appreciate it, then I would say something, I would do something. I would pull my energy back. In more recent years. In my previous years, I would say something, right? I would start an argument. I would accuse somebody of something, or I would stand up for myself, or whatever it was. But what I needed to realize for myself was that's who I am as a person. I am going to give to those who need, that I can benefit by giving my energy to. Now, if they don't reciprocate, if they don't appreciate it, that's okay. I need to be aware of that too. Because again, it's about altruism and not selflessness. You know, selflessness, and sometimes I've fallen into this and I became a martyr. I just give to whoever wanted my energy, needed my help, needed something. And, you know, as long as I could keep going and stay busy, and I'm pleasing people and keeping people happy and making money and achieving things and doing all those great things. And look at me, you know, I'm doing all this great stuff in life, you know. And then I'd eventually burn out, because what happened was I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking the time to meditate. I wasn't taking the time to breathe. I wasn't maybe eating as healthy as I should have been, because I was rushing. So I was eating more, you know, takeout food than, you know, my homemade foods. The high nutritions. Maybe I'm not properly supplementing my health as much, because I'm just on the go all the time. Maybe whatever, you know. But that was me back in the day. You know, I took pride in working 15, 18-hour days, right? And helping all these people. And look at, you know, I'm building all these successful careers. I'm making people over hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's lovely. This is great. I was also an addict. I was also in a unhappy relationship, because me and my wife had grown apart. But we stayed together for the convenience of it. And then we had a child together. And then we decided to stay together for a really long time. For the benefit of his neuroscience. And, you know, when we parted ways, it was because I was continuing on this path. And I couldn't do both. I couldn't keep her happy, keep her content. Not that that was my responsibility either, but I wasn't doing my part in the relationship, because I was so busy doing the stuff that I wanted to be doing, moving into that light. So we separated and now have a friendship. And that's the beautiful thing about this life, is nothing has to end. Nothing ends. Energy doesn't end. It continues on. Maybe it ends in the third dimensional realm. but in the higher dimensions of thoughts and feelings we live on. And the effects that we have on people along the way is directly related to how we think and how we feel about ourselves and the world around us. If we feel like we are victims in life, that we are powerless to control, if the power of prayer, right? This might seem controversial, and I'm just gonna say it. If you are wishing, praying for something to happen in your life, and you're not willing to go out there and create it, then don't be upset that it's not what you want, because you're getting what you deserve based on what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how you're behaving. And I'll personal experience. When I'm not out there doing the things that I need to do to grow my business to help people, I get leads in, but nothing compared to if I'm consciously marketing, taking the time to share my thoughts, share my stories, share. That's why we do this podcast. I mean, truth be told, I woke up this morning thinking that I might be having a heart attack, having all the symptoms, right? And everyone's like, you got to go to the doctor. And I'm like, I got to do the podcast first. My vitals are fine. So I'm going to do that. And then I'll go see what they can find out in the other thing. But that's my choice. It's my choice, because I choose for me. Now, if I was in bad shape, and not able to move forward in today's broadcast, well, then I would have to let it go. But I didn't think that was necessary. So that's not what we're doing. We're here and, sharing these stories. And, the questions that I have for the audience, I mean, I would always love to know, right? Like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have moving through the room, the repetitive thoughts that go on in your head? How do you shift that frequency to a different station? Do you guys have anything for that? I found for me, there's a lot of things I can do. So, yeah, Mark, I'm gonna go, I promise. But how do you get out of the rumination? Personally, for me, one is to say, I hear your thought. I see that thought. I understand how I could be thinking that way, feeling that way. But does this thought serve me? Does it help me? Or does it hurt me? So that's the intellectual way, right? And then there's other techniques like somatics, breath work and stretching and yoga and getting out in nature or walking, swimming. All these things can help you shift your mindset. When we exercise, we release hormones and chemicals that change the quality of our thoughts. And, all these things are here for us to take advantage of if we choose to implement them in our life. Now, I live a pretty healthy lifestyle. I have some negative habits, you would say. It's my choice to maintain or it's my choice to let them go. for the example of smoking cigarettes. That was something that I let go for many years. I started back a few years ago. I shared this before because I wanted to support my girlfriend, my fiance at the time. And when I smoked, I was like, tobacco is a sacred herb. It's medicinal. It's got some benefits, but I don't want to be a habitual smoker. Now I forgot that and became a habitual smoker. So has it had an impact on my health? Yes. So what am I going to do about it? Well, guess what? I just get to let it go. I get to modify the behavior. How do I modify the behavior? Modify the behavior by modifying the quality of my thoughts and how I feel about it. How did I quit all those years ago? It was easy. I mean, it was so easy. I really didn't think I was going to get hung up on it. And that was part of the ego trap for me. But how did I do that? By telling myself that I was a non-smoker that occasionally smoked, changed the way that I saw myself dependent on cigarettes. Hi, Larkin. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I was just sharing with everybody. I might be a little sweat. Like, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor, I guess. So,
why is this? What's wrong?
According to my pendulum and some of the symptoms I'm having, I could be having a heart attack. So, but it doesn't feel bad. So, I'm here doing this, and then I'll go get checked out after this.
Well, you're frozen right now, so I can't even see you.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Am I still frozen?
Yeah. Did
That
you
must
say
be
you're sweating? Because I'm sweating. Oh, it's hot here. It's like 90.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, did you need to go now?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Not something you typically come onto a broadcast and hear here.
Well, it's about discipline, right? So, I mean, if I was really all my vitals are good. My oxygen's good, my heart rate's good, everything. So blood pressure's good.
Yeah.
So, I check that beforehand. But
yeah, his eyes look funny. See, you're frozen to me. Yeah, my dad had a stroke about 3 years ago, and he can drive. He's got a lot of things that aren't the same, but he was able to, recover very well. But I will say, I remember years ago, when I was cleaning houses, I had a client that I walked in, and the husband was working in the basement, and the wife, I know it's different than a heart attack, but it's just for all of you listening, there's really powerful decisions sometimes in a small amount of time that you have to make. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking in, and the wife was laying on the couch, and she was gray. And I remembered before my uncle had the stroke that eventually killed him, he was very gray that night before. And she was exhausted, and she was gray, and she was kind of incoherent. And I recognized the symptoms. Yeah, definitely keep people posted so we can keep track of you. But what was interesting is she didn't want to go. And I ran down and I told the husband, he was concerned. He was spending all this time calling everybody because she didn't want to go, calling this person, that person, trying to get advice. And finally I said to him, if you don't, I know you guys don't want 911. If you don't put her in the car and take her right now to the ER and tell them that she's having a stroke, I said, I'm just going to call 911 to your house. And he was like, because you can't wait. If you get her there in time, you can stop it. If you don't, you could lose her or lose, her the way you know her. Right. And I ended up saving her life. It was a really weird thing, but, we just never know. I mean, sometimes simple things, when I had chickenpox, I had actually a staph infection. We didn't know it. My mom took me to the ER and I didn't want to go. Thank God she did, or I wouldn't be here. So you never know. But who knows, Chris? Maybe it's nothing,
Right.
Better
I mean,
safe than
I feel that it's nothing, but again, because of the responsibility and all the things, yeah, I'll go.
better safe than sorry always. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But
So,
it brings up a good point for conversation here,
right.
just to remind people, like, you always think you know what you do in with these types of decisions, but the truth is we don't always.
Right.
And sometimes it's not a big deal and sometimes it is and we don't think it is. So
Right.
that's important. But
Well,
but
and
yeah.
and the power of our thoughts, right? Like also based on our emotionality. Because my mom's a nurse or was a nurse, right? So she's got all the little all the tools, right? And so as I'm feeling kind of off, I'm just like, I just feel off. I like chest is a little tight over here, but I mean, just a little off, a little sweaty, like a little clammy. Okay. So I reached out to her and said, hey, can I use your blood cuff? I want to check my blood pressure and that kind of thing. She comes over in a frantic state, I can't even properly think or anything because, she's so concerned for my well-being. And it's like, I'm okay, give me that, the oxygen thing. And oh, look, all my numbers are good, and yeah. But, and then on my dad's end, like he shuts down, right? So he's getting angry at her because she can't, think logically. And it's just it's an amazing thing to see unfold as we're talking about the power of thoughts. And how when we get emotionally reactive, the quality of our thoughts dissipates.
Well said.
And
we
the
give
more
our
we
power
can,
away.
right. To our emotions, right? Like, and sometimes it's a human thing and we're like, oh yeah, that's totally normal. Like you just saw a horrific thing and like you should be emotionally upset and not being able to process that, right now mentally.
Right.
But when that emotionality comes down, then we have that opportunity to look at that from a new lens, from a new place of awareness, from a new perspective. And then what used to seem like an impossible obstacle has now transmuted into a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key components right there is, are you giving your power away or are you standing in your power?
Mm-hmm.
The way you claim your power, your personal power, is through choice. And our thoughts are a choice. And our emotions, not our feelings, our emotions are the mind and the body. So when you are applying self-control, you are standing in your power. And then you're able to make choices that come from a more detached place, not a reactive place. And this is where we cross over then into the conversation of reaction versus response, right? Which, people at a certain level of experience with this or a lacking level of experience with this, or that are very reactive, tend to say, well, that's a bunch of baloney. There's no difference between reaction and response. And there's a huge difference. One has the ability to step back, assess, and make a decision beyond emotion. The other is thought in the body. And what the mind and the body means is that it's already telling you something by that point, right? You have a thought, whether you're aware of it or not. Whether it's the 5% of your mind. Sorry, I had to do that because it'll keep ringing, and that's my hotspot. I can't turn my phone off. So, what was I saying? So, since emotion is the mind and the body, we have to be very aware of what we're choosing in that 5% of our mind we're aware of. And then we have to program that 95%, because the 5% we're aware of our mind comes from that 95%. So not only do we have to be aware of our thoughts and then our feelings, which is our emotions, but emotions are different than feelings, our emotions, but then we also have to be, become more and more aware of our, at 95% of our mind that we're not aware of. Okay. So this is really critical. And when we have, I think we're going to move the prayer event again because of Memorial Day.
Right.
I want to make sure we're going to talk power of prayer, because when you worry, it's very true that you're praying for something you don't want. And what does that, I'm bringing it full circle here. What does that take to get you out of it? Self-control, the ability to realize that choosing your thoughts is your choice. You have the option to choose your thoughts, and we're not taught that growing up. So,
yeah. Now,
sorry, I can't read you, Chris, because I can't see you because you're frozen to me. So.
Oh, okay. And you're like skip tracing, so just an interesting.
Oh, really? Oh no.
Yeah. What would you say is the discernment between your feelings and your emotions?
It's a good question. So your feelings, your emotions being, let's do that first. I think that's easier. We tend to use the terms interchangeably, and they're not the same thing at all. Emotions are very physical. They come from our prefrontal cortex, our thoughts running directly into our nervous system, right? So, we have a thought, it triggers neurons that, send certain chemicals through our nervous system. Usually they're habitual, right? We believe our thoughts. This is how we end up having like anxiety, depression, things like that. These are mind in the body. Oh, you can see us well. Thank you. Good. I'm glad you can see us. We can't see each other. But, and so that is something that really has to be worked on from, bringing the awareness of the subconscious mind to light to begin to see the habits of those thoughts. Because the emotions, for example, let's say something, you get angry or jealous over something and you don't know why. In that 95% of your mind you're not aware of, there are belief systems, which are repeated thoughts that you have that are habits, right? Our beliefs are habits of thinking. Then that triggers reaction, because within 15 seconds or less, but usually within 15 seconds, our brain and body chemicals have been triggered by a thought that we have. And oftentimes it's in that subconscious mind, that belief. So sometimes we don't know really what we're thinking or what we're believing until it comes out in our emotions. Right. And this is why we say like a lot of men become out of touch with their emotions if they don't talk about them, because they don't, and it's fine if you guys don't talk about them. There's other ways to have awareness, but it's more common with men, but it happens with both men and women, where you're angry, you don't know why you're angry, or you react and you say, well, it's because you did this, but it's not really. It's because of the belief system in that subconscious mind. Then the emotion is the mind and the body, and then we have a reaction. Okay. Right. Feelings, on the other hand, also obviously for us to be aware of them, they have to eventually come out and process through our brain, through our thoughts. But feelings are more attached to our consciousness, right? They're like intuitions or gut feelings. They're not the mind and the body that have to run through the nervous system, although they can once we process them. But initially, feelings are like, I just feel I need to do something I'm passionate about. Or I just feel like this job isn't going to be a good match. That is more in touch with your intuition, and it comes from your consciousness. Now, what happens once it passes through your consciousness, obviously for you to process it, it will then come through your conscious mind, that 5% you're aware of, and you're like, oh, I'm having a feeling. Whereas the emotions are coming directly from thought, which is either coming from, well, is always somewhat coming from that 95% you're not aware of, and then also through your conscious mind, the little fragment that you're aware of. So they are actually two very different things. So if you guys were assessing this on your own, you might be like, maybe you wake up with a feeling of dread one day. You would just wake up with this feeling of dread, like something has just happened or something is going to happen. And it's like an intuitive warning sign, right? This feeling is like a messenger to you, something you're conscious of. Then as you attach thoughts to it, it can become an emotion in the body. But a feeling is very different. Whereas an emotion is always coming from that neurological programming. And the emotion is always triggered from that thought. It's very grounded. It's very down to earth. It's very in the body. I hope that's a thorough enough explanation. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and you know, to just to play with it a little bit from what you were saying, an emotion is a reaction, a reactional response, where a feeling is more of a response.
And a feeling is more of an observation of an energy or a message that you're getting. I think that's a great way to define it. Yes. And then we can choose not to react to the emotion in the body, but it has the brain and body chemicals going. Right. And I think it's important for people to remember that emotion always trumps logic. Which is why one of the great practices of true meditation, not this guided, fluffy, puffy stuff everybody advertises, but actual true meditation where you're conscious and awake, but you're not thinking. Right. It's your natural state of being when you're not in human form, actually. It's like a little vacation for your soul. But when you're actually, you know, there, or I'm trying to think the way I was going to put this, when you're doing martial arts or this meditation, what really the biggest aspect of martial arts and meditation requires self-control, which is why people say, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. Well, so does silence. When you want to react or respond to someone, and our society teaches us, especially women, be loud, make your voice heard. Well, the feminine power was actually not doing that. It was actually running things from behind the scenes by not doing that. And so I'm not saying don't voice things where needed, but everybody thinks the louder they are, the more they talk, blah, 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 that talking means power. And actually it's the opposite. The most silent person in the room usually has the most power, because if you have the most self-control, you have the most power. And not control over others, most self-control gives you the most power comparatively. The other thing is that when you have enough self-control to be silent, you're being still. And when you're still, you're actually being observant. When you're talking, like right now, I'm not being observant because I'm sharing and I'm talking. But if I were to go hiking in the woods, I probably wouldn't say anything.
Right.
And what happens is the more silent that you are, the more your observation abilities come about, and you're able to process, because talking is very much connected to thought, and thought is ego. So when you shut this up, your human senses heighten, your intuitive senses heighten, your third eye sense heightens, your clairs start to heighten, and all of a sudden, all of your ability to observe is like 100-fold. And if you can do that for just 15 minutes or more, you can start to observe a huge transformation within yourself and in what you notice around you. And you'll get answers. There's just things that will be clear to you that you might be drilling somebody. Tell me this, I have to know. If you just sit with that person and you let them talk and you watch their behavior for 15 minutes, you will start to get every answer you need to know.
Yep.
It will be loud within you.
Yep. Absolutely. I was going to say, as you were sharing that, I'm just getting truth bumps, you know, chills on.
Truth bumps.
Yes. It's like, you know, like and we do it all the time in relationships, right? We're like, hey, honey, is there anything I can do for you? Are you challenged in any way? Can I make life easier for you? No, I'm good. Okay, right. And then you watch them and you're like, I don't know if they're telling me the truth.
That's right. And it's amazing what you'll bring out in other people when you're silent. When you're still. It's holding a space. And that holding of the space allows there to be room. It creates room for presence, right?
Right.
Because one of Eckhart Tolle's greatest teachings is our brain is so hardwired to look at objects, to look at things in space that fill up space. We're always looking at what can we fill up the space, and we don't see the space.
Right.
Go through just one day where you pay attention to the space between the bars in a gate, the space around somebody's body, the space between the floor and the ceiling. You start to see life very differently.
Right. Absolutely.
Hi, Shalala. Welcome. Sending you good intentions, Chris.
Yeah. I appreciate all the love and the concern, but I'm fine. Please don't send me prayers. Send me blessings, if anything. So, that's, and that's another thing about thoughts, right? Like we do that to try to empathize with people and sympathize. Like, I'm not feeling good today. Oh, that's, so bad. Oh, I'm so sorry that, you feel that way today, or, any of that other stuff. Well, that's draining our life energy. If you can just say, okay, is there anything I can get you, that could help you feel better? That's actually like one of the most powerful things that we can do for one another. Like, oh, you're feeling off today. Well, how can I help? Rather than like go down the worry path, or, oh, what could it be? Let's get on WebMD and look at the symptoms and, try to, discern, all these various different things. All this for me anyway, with this physical stuff, all came about after a really wicked, vivid dream 2 nights ago that I keep having a continuation of. So like, I don't think it's physical, but I am having physical symptoms. So I think it's more of an energetic thing. Which,
energetic comes first and then physical. So it may or may not have gone that far.
Right.
Yeah.
So
interesting about your dream though. I want to hear about it at some point. If I remove you and I add you back in, if you'll move around again.
Yeah. I'm flowing like water over here. I don't know.
Let's try it. Nope. Nope.
No.
I got a smile. I have a smile on my screen now.
Okay, at least you got a smile. Instead of a silly, like, weird face. Maybe it's your hot spot. But yeah, and that's, getting back to the topic of the show, the power of our thoughts. Even the subconscious, even our dreams are thoughts. That's the importance of them. A lot of people don't think about that, right? And what the subconscious mind is actually sharing with us in our dream state.
Mm-hmm.
And how much physical effect that it can have.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's I think one of the things that, if you listen to me a lot, I say this almost every broadcast. One of the most powerful things I believe a person can do, because it has helped my clients all transform, it helped me to transform, it is very liberating. And Eckhart Tolle, he teaches this. I'm not just making this up, but when you can learn to decipher between your thoughts and your consciousness, your eternal consciousness, your awareness, that observer behind your thoughts, you have gained so much freedom you can't possibly imagine, because until you can do that, you cannot fully use your mind as a tool to obey your intentions.
Right.
And it will be confusing, and you will kind of mesh everything together. And in order to use your mind as a tool, your thoughts cannot be running you, right? So mind, ego, resistance, and thought are all synonymous. Those four things are all synonymous. Eckhart Tolle says that. I didn't say that. I knew it on my and then I read Eckhart Tolle, and what I loved about Eckhart Tolle was he validated what my soul knew. What I remembered it was trying to put into words. And that will be true for a lot of you guys. And so when you guys can do that, you know, if you want to really understand the power of thoughts, if you want to empower your prayer, it's very important that within yourself, you learn to decipher who is that consciousness, who is that eternal observer behind my thoughts that is aware that I'm talking, that is aware that I'm breathing, that is aware of all these things. And then you can stop taking your thoughts so seriously. And when you stop taking your thoughts so seriously, instead of trying to control them and not have them, you can just, observe them from a detached perspective.
Right.
This is stepping into your power, because as long as your thoughts are running your life, your ego is in control, and you are not standing in your power. And what does that really mean? That means everyone and everything that you come in contact with that triggers you, that upsets you, that stirs you up, that brainwashes you, that gives you ideas, is running your life.
Right.
And where did they get their thoughts and beliefs from? They're affected the same way. I mean, this can go back generations, but it's up to each of us to take responsibility for the package we have.
Right.
And do with it what we will. And this is where we have to learn radical responsibility, because anything other than that, whenever we blame somebody else or anything else, even if it has had an impact or affected us, we're just handing our power away, and we don't even know it. Right. And then what do? Then we worry and complain. Right.
Well, and the other thing about thoughts and beliefs is they sometimes get outdated. And if we're not, if you know, I mean, what I knew to be true at 10-year-old me is definitely different than the 44-year-old me, right? Yep. And if we're not looking at those things, you know, and changing the way we think about it, then it's just going to be a habitual, really deep core thing.
The horsey in there.
Yeah. And, you know, like, I don't want to throw doctors under the bus, but I'm going to, because it just came to mind. But most of the doctors that I've been privileged to know on a non-professional basis, they do read a little bit.
A little bit of what?
But they read the stuff that came from the drug manufacturers. They read, you know, like, to stay up to date to things. You know, they have continuing education and, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
But the sources of what they're reading are coming from the people who are benefited by them prescribing that drug or that procedure or that thing. And so, you know, you ask, you share some alternative information because it's alternative, right? It's different than what they know. And immediately they want to get defensive. And it's like, it's all information. Yeah. It's all thought. And the question, like when we went through the whole COVID thing, you know, and I would debate with people all the time, back and forth. And I'm like, if you want to get jabbed, you know, like that's your call, whatever, you know, like, and, you know, like that's your choice and you're right. But here's the thing. You can't undo what you've already done. So if you're unaware of the efficiency, the effectiveness, the blah, 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 blah of what you're getting ready to put in your body, you're taking that chance. And outside of fear, they had no reason. And that's the same, you know, for me, and this is just the whole vaccine thing in the nutshell. The fact that you can't sue a manufacturer for the challenges that you get from the side effects that you get from a vaccine, but you actually can sue the government, tells me that there's something fishy. Something doesn't seem right to me. If you can't hold people accountable or companies accountable for what they're doing. And so for me, that's an ethics thing or a moral thing. And so I don't need any more information. That's me personally. What everybody else chooses to do is their choice, as long as it affects their health and not, a lot of other people, I guess.
Well, and I think that's all across the board. I mean, I do believe in the vaccines. I did get the vaccines. I was glad I got it when I had COVID because my symptoms were actually pretty mild. But I know a lot of people that died from it. So I have a very different opinion on that.
Right.
My best friend is also a doctor, and I see both sides to what you're saying. I think the last part of what you said is happening everywhere anyway, in all industries. And, it's right now, everything is set up so that basically, the little guy, us, we can be charged, we can be sued, we can be in trouble, we can be penalized, but these big corporations and that can't.
Right.
The medical school curriculum comes from the pharmaceutical companies. That's a real problem.
Right.
I didn't have a problem with this vaccine. There's vaccines I don't have a problem with. I think a lot of times in a lot of different situations, all the way down to the doctors, there's people trying to do the best they can. There are doctors that do a lot of research outside of these types of things. There's doctors that get their DO in addition to their MD for the exact reasons you're talking about. So I think it's important to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely.
I know from my dad and sister, they have autoimmune, and that's one of the reasons I got the vaccine. If they get it, they can that's it. It was better to reduce the symptoms. And I'm sure there's always risks. I got all 3 of the measles from my measles vaccines when I was a kid. But I think that this is where, the power of thought steps in. Like for me, I didn't get the vaccine out of fear. I wasn't feeling fear when I got it. A lot of people do. But I'm very preventative. And so I think for each person, the level of awareness has to be, what is my motivation? Because since emotion trumps logic, why do you make the decisions you make? What is the pattern of the decisions you make? And what is your MO for making decisions? See, no matter what the topic is, those things are very important to know and understand about yourself. Do you typically make decisions out of fear? Do you typically make decisions because you're trying to be proactive? Do you make decisions where you have to always consult everybody else before you make a decision? Or do you trust yourself to make all the right decisions? Right? So, are you okay with making a decision and making a mistake because you trust yourself?
Right.
And you know yourself well enough. All of these things are a part of, you guys always hear me say, remember who you are. Remember who you are as a soul and a consciousness, but know who you are as a human. Get to know who you are as a human, good, bad. And here's an interesting thing, Chris, I think you'll relate to too, is that most of us choose what we idealize instead of what really is. So a lot of times if people are asking us our habits, or we're trying to honestly assess our own habits or the way that we are personality-wise, we will often idealize something instead of, like we might say, I'm really neat and organized, because we want to be neat and organized. And maybe we're around people who aren't. Or maybe we come in and we take over and we organize things for other people. Maybe those people are more organized than us. But we have these ideas and concepts about ourselves. And those are thoughts, right? they're all thoughts. And Eckhart Tolle's whole point in his book, The Power of Now, so much of it is about what is your identification with thought, which leads to what is your story. Because you are going to go into relationships, into jobs, your 95% of your mind you're not aware of, guess what? That is a part of your story. You're carrying your past with you, how you've identified in every situation you've ever been in, the way you have emotionally felt in every circumstance you've ever had, and all that makes up your identity and who you believe you are. And guess what? That's not who you are. That's who you're choosing to be based on the programming that you've had. So what can we logically conclude? You need to start, if you want to utilize your power of thoughts, you need to learn to become the gatekeeper and master programmer. Flies are bad in here today. Of your own thoughts. Become the gatekeeper. And your whole life begins to change. But that's a lot of work. We're not used to doing that. So it doesn't start off easy. Right.
Well, nothing that we ever start is easy. And that's why most people don't get started.
Yeah,
or they don't continue it, right? It's like, oh, that was tough. That was tough. Well, you've been practicing for 22, you're 63 years old now. You've done this your whole life, and now you're going to just flip a switch and change all your neural connections. Man, that's awesome. I'd love to know how to do that.
So what though, right? So what? I mean, this is the thing I think is important for people to understand. So what? Right. We are so programmed that, oh my God, you can't feel bad. Oh, they hurt your feelings. Never talk to them again.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's abusive. Get away from that.
Right.
Look, guys, you're human. Shit is going to happen. Every day there's going to be things you don't like. It's not the things that are happening to you, and it's not even how you feel about it. It is the resistance you have to how you feel about it that causes all of your problems and programs that subconscious mind to create things you don't want. Right? You avoid relationships because you got cheated on once. You know what? We all get betrayed. Am I belittling what you went through? No, but I'm making it more flatlined. Right. I'm not saying go off into the world and expect to be cheated on, but what I'm saying is we're living in a world where every moment is advertised and marketed that it's supposed to be an ideal moment. It's not. You could find the perfect soulmate, and every moment is not going to be perfect. Every interaction is not going to be perfect. Every vacation, holiday, every kiss is not going to be perfect. So, we have people that instead of adapting to life, they are getting all upset and bent out of shape, not for a minute or two, but for hours, days, weeks, and months at a time.
Right.
Because things aren't the way they think they should be. And that's the problem with our own identity and our own story.
Right.
Yeah.
And very few times do we take the personal responsibility to say, this is where I wasn't living up to my own expectations. Mm-hmm. And this is what I can do about it. I made a mistake. I took some things for granted. Things fell through the cracks, whatever. And now I can do something about it.
Right.
Because I'm taking the thought, I'm owning it, and now I can do something about it. When we bypass and say, oh, there's no market for this in this area, or these people just don't get me, or whatever. And it's like, well, they don't get you because you don't get yourself. You're showing, who you think you are and who you are two different beingnesses. And they're trying to show you that mirror. And instead of saying that, they just push away from adversity.
And that's part of the story problem. See, that's part of the problem with story.
Right.
It is, you know, what is your own, how does your own story tie into what you just said?
Right.
You know, that's part of what you believe about yourself. And so it's very hard to get out of that, because without knowing it, you know, like, this is something that is so hard to say, because you don't get this until you experience it for yourself. But let's see. Wait, I want to say this and then I'll get to your comment, C Mark. I have so many clients that come to me, and mind you, they work with me 2 to 3 years to create transformation, guys. It's not like this, right? But so many times you hear things like, people aren't nice to me, or, you know, people don't like me, or I'm always the one that's rejected, or whatever. Well, what they don't realize is there's a level and an aspect of what they are doing, how they are behaving, how they are treating others, how they are expecting themselves to be treated, that is inviting that. Mm-hmm. And they cannot see it for themselves. And they have this victim mentality. And so when you try to tell them that, just take responsibility for your own feelings, they get very angry, because they'd rather that than take responsibility for it themselves.
Right.
And they usually cannot see that those other people are a mirror for their own behavior.
Right.
I mean, usually people that are really maybe controlling or not nice to others, they're like, people are always mean to me. Well, you know, I mean, so, you know, this is something that usually if someone says this to you, you get angry and resentful. But unfortunately, people have to go through a lot of pain before they discover this. Let's see. Mark, you said Larkin saying a soulmate connection isn't going to be perfect all the time. It's going to blow the minds of a lot of people. Yeah, it is. It will. I mean, and this is something, honestly, that with my readings comes up a lot. See, Mark, a lot. I mean, people that come for readings are always wanting to know about their relationships and all this and that. And to be quite honest, not just myself as a mindset coach, but how spirit comes through is very practical, because we are a part of our spirit team. It's not just up to our angels and spirit guides. It's up to us. We're here. We're human. Sometimes our soulmate is not here for us to be with. Sometimes our soulmate isn't even here. This is a term that has been so blown out of proportion and misused. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But our soul's priority is to come and learn and grow and expand, not to come and have this dream life with our soulmate. Now, can we choose that at some point? Sure. But we can do that on the other side. Here we come to learn and contribute, or to learn and grow. And so, you know, sometimes your soulmate is the one that causes you the greatest pain. Sometimes you come and spend a little short bit of time with them, or you see them in passing, and then you spend the rest of your life learning how to live without them.
Right.
Sometimes you end up in a horrible relationship with them. But we choose these things. And, you know, again, this is where I have an issue with the ideas that are resold and marketed, that are true and genuine ideas that our people are making money off of. God knows I'm not making money off of trying to tell people the truth here and help them remember the truths for themselves. But, you know, the coaching industry is $1 billion industry. I mean, a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so are readings. And people can get on and they might honestly believe, you know, we glorify this soulmate thing. And the problem with that is that the ego says, well, okay, if it's my soulmate, then everything will be perfect. And so then we pine over that person, or we struggle in that relationship. We think, because, well, since you're my soulmate, there should be no problems in this relationship. Not true. But we buy into that idea, and then we suffer. So.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what it is what it is. It's not what it's not, and we'll make it mean whatever we need to move us forward. Right?
That's right. I love that phrase. It is what it is. I mean, we have to accept the now as it is, and move from here. Right. And most people don't know how to move from here, right?
Right. Well, it's always here. I mean, the only time we can see our thoughts is in the now. Whether they're memories of the past or projections of the future, thoughts are always coming to us in the now moment, right?
Absolutely.
So,
And C. Mark said it's difficult for people to understand that twin flame soulmates are here to help you, or you to help them to learn from. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like, if you're drunk and somebody fights with you to get you in a cab so you don't drive home.
right.
You might not be happy with them at the time, but really everybody that comes into your path, even people that hurt you, everything is always working out for you.
Right.
And when you shift into seeing that perspective, everything changes.
Right.
Yeah, thoughts always mess you up, right? Usually, yeah, I'll say usually. You're right, because thoughts are synonymous with ego. So have the thoughts, use the thoughts of your own choosing, but do not believe your thoughts. And I think that's the key. Just don't believe your thoughts, because they will always reemphasize a belief that your ego already has that keeps you under its control. It's very important. Yes.
So, what's the takeaway for today?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think you just said it.
You can share it again, and then others will maybe listen to you. They've already heard me say it.
Yeah.
What's yours?
I mean, that's the power of our thoughts are just that. It's the power that we give them. So when we empower them to move us beyond our obstacles, we can create opportunities. If we see adversities as an opportunity to grow beyond and evolve beyond who we've been, how we've been, why we've been, we move beyond the egoic self, the limited version of self. I mean, the fact that our thoughts separate us from source energy should say enough in itself that it's not a totalitarian reality that's in our head. So
yes, perfect. It's true. And to be quite honest, guys, if people were to come and say, oh my God, I want to coach with you, Larkin, I want a transformation, what can I do? I can't afford anything. I'll never be able to afford to coach, but what could I do? That's what I would tell them.
Afford a coach?
If this is what you work on for the rest of your life, work on being aware of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And realizing that they're just thoughts. And that changes everything.
Right.
Because it takes their power away. And then you have the opportunity to begin choosing them eventually, and choosing what you do with them and what they mean to you. Because nothing has meaning unless you give it meaning.
Right.
To assign that meaning. So,
and the only time I'm aware of us being without thought is when we're brain dead.
So when you're sleeping, though, actually, when you're sleeping, because your brain waves change, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind become very still. Now, your subconscious mind at certain levels of sleep, they are processing and filing, and that's a lot of the dreams that you have. But then when you get deeper into sleep and your brain waves slow down even more, this is when we go into the astral plane, and our brain is, our thoughts are still and quiet, and we're able to be conscious outside of that. But this is why true meditation, like TM meditation, is so important. Because to be able to be consciously awake and free of thought is actually an experience very few people have. And it makes me nauseous whenever I hear somebody say, I meditate. I do not believe them. There are maybe 5 people that I know and believe meditate, that I know personally in my life, that I know for a fact really meditate. And it's because it shouldn't be about the experience either. It's not about the experience. You actually work through things in your life more quickly when you're having this true meditation, which is what the Maharishi discovered. And it's you're conscious, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this in The Power of Now and Stillness Speaks. He teaches you windows, like I teach my clients, to get out of thought for just like a second at a time. And in the beginning, it's only a second at a time. You can't do it after any more than that. All of a sudden, thoughts start coming in. But it's actually your natural state when you're not in human form. So to be able to be in human form, consciously awake and not sleeping, and free of thought, there are no words, my friends. You get there through stillness and silence, through learning to be present, through practicing true meditation. Like you can use Om if you don't have a TM mantra. But what happens is, this is a lot of what the shamans were doing with the drumming. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of different ways to get there. Right. But when we get there, a lot of people will say, oh, it's a trance. It's not really a trance. It's not the same as being in a trance. But it's a whole equal way of being that is usually covered up by thought. And when that is removed and you just are, the first time this happened to me during my TM meditation, I just laughed. I laughed to tears for about 15 minutes. And I had never experienced that before in this body, in this life, in human form. Mm-hmm. And it was the most fulfilling, euphoric experience. And I remember, oh my God, yes, this is my natural state. This is who and how I am. This is how it is. And from that point on, I made a real point to learn to go through my day and be able to just shut my thoughts off when I wanted to. Right. And it takes practice, but it is transforming, and it helps you go through things in your life more quickly, because our thoughts slow down everything in our lives. Right. That's very important. I want to get this question here. Can you go into complete silence through deep meditation, out thought for longer periods of time? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's sort of Eckhart Tolle's point with the Power of Now book, and why I ask all my clients to read it. They don't always, I remind them, just 1 page a day, just 5 minutes a day, because it's written from consciousness to your consciousness. But in there, he explains different ways. And yeah, I mean, if you can do 1 second, you can do 2 seconds. If you can do 2 seconds, you can do 3 seconds. And for me personally, I was already doing my TM meditation, but I did it on my walks with my dogs in nature, because I used his one of the techniques he describes is observation. So look, I'm a naturalist, so I look at a tree and I'm like, there's an oak, there's a maple. Looking at that tree and not labeling it. Right. Just get caught up in the leaves and the energy and its aura and what it's saying, and just being present with it, and you're sucked out of thought. That's why nature is so important, right, Chris? So so I would recommend, if you're going to use that tactic, be out in nature, because nature will help you with this. And then, oh my God, you realize, oh my God, it was like a second, like there wasn't any thought. But what happens is, after you do this a while, you start to notice that second expands, and you get to start to experience the timelessness of what is. Because a second is no longer a second. It can feel like a year. But that's a whole nother conversation. But great question. And yes, you absolutely can do that.
Awesome. Well, as
Chris,
always, appreciate you, Larkin.
You too. We will post the new date for the prayer sphere, guys. So if you know anyone that's interested, we're going to be including this and show you different forms of prayer, what's disempowering, what is empowering. We're going to assess what we think about Memorial Day weekend and see if we want to push it 1 more week out, just so we have a big enough group of people that more people can experience it. So,
right. Well, wonderful. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for everything you are, everything you do, everything you choose to be. And we will see you next week on Tuesday. Talk to you soon.
See you later, guys.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the reminder, Mark. We're doing the Elder Speak event on the 30th.
Yes. Yay. I can't wait.
And yeah, I need to get your bio, by the way, so I can promote it. Okay.
I'll send that to you tomorrow.
All right. Sweet.
Thank
All right. Take
Bye,
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.